You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show. And yes, I am your host, Rick Franzi. And boy, do we have a good show for you today. Why, do you ask? Because Tonks is our guest. He is an expert EOS implementer. Ian, welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
Let's get started with, and I know you're doing a multitude of things, and we'll start out with the conversation about EOS and then evolve it from there. But take us back in time. What was the original inspiration or motivation you had to become an EOS implementer?
Well, I somewhat stumbled into EOS implementation. I'd just written a book titled Replacing the Rainmaker. I was a business development coach working exclusively with accountants, lawyers, architects, and engineers. And at a book signing event, someone gave me a copy of Traction, which at the time seemed somewhat rude. You know, I'm hawking my own book, and someone said, you should read this. And so, of course, I couldn't put it down. I was sort of transfixed by its transformative message. And 48 hours later, I found myself on a plane to Detroit. I went through boot camp the following Thursday. And about 8 1/3 years later, here I am now, having done 800 session days.
Wow.
So it was life-changing. I'd say in addition to the transition, I think my story somewhat informs why then. So I had originally cut my teeth as an executive. I started as a founding employee of an organization that when we sold it had 653 employees. I was president for the last 10 of the 17 years in that business. And we ran youth sports development programming for most of this country's professional sports leagues like the NFL and the PGA Tour and Major League Soccer. And the transition from that life, executive, into the entrepreneurial life of being a standalone consultant, I think uniquely positioned me to be in the right place at the right time with the right experience and the right sort of raw talent to be right person, right seat for EOS implementation. So combination of luck, timing, and I think, you know, a journey well lived to get there.
So I introduced you as an expert EOS implementer, and I know there are levels of EOS implementers. Can you help us to understand what the expert designation means?
Sure. So when you come through boot camp as an EOS implementer, you are designated as a professional. When you've done 50 session days and or taught all 12 of the unique individual session days within the EOS teaching plan and maintained an average session score of 8.75 out of 10, you're designated as a certified implementer. And then there's this quantum leap from 50 to 500. So when you get to 500 session days, and you maintain an average lifetime session score, that means every person in every room has evaluated you in every session you've ever done, and you have to be over 8.75. So I got to about 500 session days in around 6 years. I'm just about to hit 800 session days. And I just because we have a QCE coming, a quarterly exchange, I looked up my lifetime session rating score, and it was 9.42 out of 10. So I managed to fog the mirror long enough. And, you know, the experience obviously helps you to get more seasoned clients that are looking for someone with more EOS experience.
The organization, we'll talk about EOS just for a minute, then we'll move on to your portfolio career. But being around it for as long as you have been, you must have seen the evolution of EOS in the marketplace. Can you sort of speak to the awakening that SMBs and companies have had to the principles of EOS?
Yeah, so I mean, most people are familiar with this book.
Right.
Traction was sort of the foundational book. I know you've read this one, Rick. So it was written in 2009. At the time, Gino Wickman he'd sold the family business, was sort of driving up and down the Midwestern corridor trying to solicit folks to teach this method. And I would describe it as almost a napkin process. People were with the guts and the framework of what became EOS. He managed to recruit a few folk, some of which are still in the implementer community. Fast forward to 2016 when I joined, it was still a member-driven organization, meaning we signed an agreement, but there was no franchise, no real prototype, still some flexibility about how we implemented the method. And then in 2019, I think it was, Gino Wickman sold the business to a private equity firm that had bought 9 other companies that ran on EOS. And EOS Worldwide was its 10th acquisition.
Oh, wow.
And so on the other side of private equity acquisition, very quickly we moved into a franchise format. So that was challenging for EOS Worldwide to go to all of the continents and now standardize the delivery of what EOS looks like. But on the other side of that, we ceased to be a mom and pop organization, which I think we were before. And now there are multiple entities. There is EOS Worldwide, Rocket Fuel University, Great Boss Workshops. They run a large national symposium event for clients annually, and they just ended last week their first symposium for visionaries and integrators, which would be the equivalent of presidents and COOs. So it's a much bigger enterprise, much more structured, much more formal than it was. But for me, that's been good. That's brought a lot of substance and structure to what we do. And EOS is very supportive in generating 9 now books supporting the method, a Basecamp resource that you can go to self-implement the method, and a host of tools, techniques, and strategies to help folks like me in the communities in which we live be successful at what we do.
So when you read the book and you went to Michigan, Detroit, and did the training, did you expect these years later to be in this position with EOS and the IP?
No, the irony of all ironies is it was very much plan B. It was a contingency plan. Someone said to me, well, we'll write you a check for $40,000, but you have to be on a plane on Thursday. And if you go through the certification process, 2 of us from a Vistage group in Northern California will each own you for 5 days. So it was sort of a prepay for your EOS Implementer plan. Okay. And I thought, well, there's little to lose. You know, I've written a book. I'm on a tour. I'm about to travel the world and speak at these different global accounting events. So I thought, well, this would be a good fallback. And it sort of speaks to my born poor, always need to have another line in the water, party training. So at the time it was plan B, but very quickly I realized I'd found my tribe and I'd found a family. And what I loved about EOS, in everything else, Rick, I've ever done, I had to create it, sell it, and do it. This was the first time I didn't have to create it. So I love the fact it was turnkey, it works, and I just have to learn it and deliver it and marry it with my experience and expertise. And that was, I think, the joy of why EOS, why then.
Okay, so you portfolio career at this time in your life, Ian. So in addition to being an expert EOS implementer, there are other things you're doing. So help us to get a little more broader appreciation for the portfolio of things that Ian Tonks is now involved in.
Thank you. So I have an eclectic mess of interests. And again, it sort of speaks to my personality. We teach the idea of core focus. And it's ironic that although I can marry all the entities within sort of a family of helping individuals or businesses to get more out of work or life, the entities themselves are quite different. So in addition to EOS, I'm also a predictive index preferred partner, which is an assessment tool to help you position the right person in the right seat on the right team right now. I'm also a Gallup Strengths coach. I have an entity which does exclusively coaching around career and life transitions. I built 2 LMS platforms, one in the arena of business development called Replacing the Rainmaker around my book, and a second one, which is an LMS with 600 different session topics for leaders and managers called Masterful Management. And then I also, as an offshoot of this, was asked to do an international retreat by a company overseas. And in order to qualify, I had to become ITAN certified, which means I'm an international travel agent, recognized facilitator. And that spawned another business called Team Retreats. But all of the entities essentially are supporting the same sort of small to mid-sized client in a certain stage of evolution, trying to help the organization be better and the people in it be just a little bit more mindful and thoughtful and practical about what they do. And then as we transition into 2025, so as not to leave a stone unturned, I am just about to launch a web-based technology and an app called Decidify, which is a technology that helps you to make more informed and thoughtful decisions. So that's exciting because it's my first foray into the world of AI and technology. And then, as I'll hopefully talk about at the end, when I'm waxing on about what's like after EOS, we've just started a charity called Charapilla, which is founded on the 8 pillars of health and wellness. It is a challenge platform that has 160 challenges, encouraging the individual to be better, as in healthier, more financially prosperous, more sustainably considered, while at the same time raising $1 billion for charity by 2036. So there's always something going on, but I find that energy of change keeps me motivated. And also as an EOS implementer, I think it helps that you're actually in a business, entrepreneurial of your own right, rather than just teaching the principles of how to be an entrepreneur.
That's what I have learned, especially working with SMB businesses. You have more gravitas if you're an equal, or you're walking the same journey than if you're theoretical, coming from a corporate background kind of a person. So that we're going to get to the future in a couple of minutes. I'm wondering, of all the things that you've ingested and learned and advice you've been given, is there a piece of advice that you have found really valuable for you professionally, Ian, that you could pay forward and share with my audience today?
Yes, there were two that came to mind. So the first one is a quote in my book, and I say that while the world needs people that are well-rounded, it rewards people that are well-pointed. And so as a utilitarian, as someone that's a generalist, generally broadly skilled at lots of things, but not great at one thing, it's caused me to be a lot more thoughtful about how I refine an idea and how I make it more directed and targeted to a niche. So that piece of advice definitely changed how I focus my marketing efforts around a particular segment or population. The second one doesn't easily translate on a screen without a whiteboard. But if I just say the expression, then it spell it out. So the expression is, if you don't see it, you'll never see it. In the first C, it would be C, the letter C for conceptualize. So if you don't conceptualize it, you will never see it. And so what this has caused me to do is spend a lot more time in framing an idea, trialing it, testing it, refining it before I take it to market, which is not my instinct. My instinct, Rick, is I'm a doer. So I learn from trial and error. I learn by jumping off the cliff and seeing if it works. Mm-hmm. And it has been interesting to sort of belie my own self-reliance and adopt a piece of wisdom that someone gave to me a couple of days and apply that in a much more laborsome and thoughtful manner.
Wow. Self-aware. I love it. That's great. And I appreciate both pieces of insight. And here on the show, I've been asking that question for a couple of years now, and I have yet to hear what I consider to be the same answer. So I continue to ask it because it's a great way to learn from each other. And I appreciate that. You mentioned the software that you're launching, Decidify, on AI. So give us a little bit more insight into how you are viewing AI, maybe how it's underpinning your next venture, and maybe even what you're seeing as an EOS implementer, some of your clients might be doing with the AI.
Yeah, so let me tackle that sort of I, we, us in that order. For me personally, I find this funny. So when email first came out, Rick, I remember saying, that will never work. I actually said those words.
To yourself or to others?
No, I said it out loud to someone else. And then Facebook came along, and I realized that I'm of a certain age, I'm 58, and I realized that I'm still listening to the same music I listed in college. I'm still somewhere lost in 1987. And that I looked at Facebook as that's the extent of my technological advance. So when Instagram came up, when TikTok came out, Snapchat, I decided I was done. What's unique about AI is that I've sort of resisted my natural age temptation to say, that's great, but not for me. I realized very quickly this could really help me from a large language perspective to do things that I do, like I write and I edit, and I could do it a lot faster and a lot better with technology. And then when I formed Decidify, and just to give you a little example of what Decidify is, and there's 250 decision scorecards in the technology, but let's take an obvious one that many people go through: which college to attend. So there is a short form called a quick view, and then a long form in-depth scorecard, 12 or 36 variables, each weighted in importance. And when there are multiple decision makers, you can even weight the decision maker, as in Child gets 75% of the college decision, parents each get 12.5%. And so it all runs into an algorithm. You then go to the universities that you picked and you essentially score each institution, and the technology will tell you which institution to pick. But what it doesn't do is tell you, before you begin the search, based on what you think are your search criteria, which ones should you look at? And obviously you used to have to hire a college consultant to do that. So now in modern technology, I can simply import an AI bot into the page. They can verbally input that criteria and it will spit out the list of candidates. And then they plug those candidates into my tool and then they begin the journey of evaluation. So that's me. In terms of I have two great clients that are applying AI in the marketplace. One is probably a world leader in AI technology and advancement. That's Singularity University. So those of you that are akin to AI will be familiar with that name. So I'm lucky to be on the inside of the leadership team room with that particular group. And then I have a digital marketing company in Northern California called WSI Smart Marketing. And they're really doing a lot around conceptualizing lead generation and how to make AI a relevant tool in the lead gen process. And then beyond that, in an EOS Implementer's room, it didn't take long for someone to say, well, now we've done the 3-year picture, let's enter that in ChatGPT and see what it tells us our 1-year plan is. And of course, I resisted that as someone that it was almost like, well, you don't need me. But I realized if I did it, it actually would inform and facilitate or aid or accelerate the process of creating their plan. And so again, I try not to sound like the guy at the end of every Scooby-Doo movie. You know, I would have got away with it too, hadn't it been for you muddling kids. I feel like that as an old guy sometimes in a young room, but AI has totally changed my mindset about that.
I applaud that. Again, self-awareness, but also pushing the boundaries. And those are great applications of how AI, and you work with Singularity, as we talked about before, the university and the branches that it has in different locations around the world has been endeavoring to work on AI before AI was a thing that the zeitgeist now caught on to with ChatGPT, right? So it's good. It's good to see that. Let's talk about the future then. You gave us a tease a little bit about what you see as the next chapter, maybe in Ian Tonks' professional and personal life, but take us a little bit different with the time that we have left, please.
Yeah, so the people that are tuning in today that are familiar with EOS, you'll be familiar with a tool called the Vision Traction Organizer. Said another way, a 2-page business plan. And I have one both for my business, but I also have one for my life. And this year, for the first time, I merged both documents. And so I know that the core target is to do 1,100 EOS sessions and graduate 100 clients. That's how I know I'm ready to transition to the next phase of my life, which for most people, I think they would call semi-retirement. So in semi-retirement, which is 3 to 5 years away, according to what the market does, I intend to dedicate 100% of my focus on Charapilla. It's a way for me to sort of cultivate my daughter's business interests. She goes to JSerra in San Juan Capistrano, so she's in the business magnet. She's a budding entrepreneur. She knows she wants to go straight through 5-year MBA and be her own boss. And so this is a business to cultivate the skills, the chops to be good at business, but do something altruistic that is for the betterment of the individual and society. So again, raising $1 billion by 2036 will be my life's mission. And then, Rick, in 2036, I'll be 70 years old. And I decided that I would not plan beyond 70. I'd like to reserve the last climb for a mountain I can't see yet. So I'm going to wait to see what that mountain looks like. It could be a slope off the back streets of San Juan Capistrano. It could be Mount Kilimanjaro. So stay tuned. I'll tell you what that looks like 12 years from now. That's
excellent. Very invigorating and exciting. And I told you, ladies and gentlemen, at the top of the show, we had a great show planned for you. And Ian, you have delivered. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And I know how busy you are with all the plates that you're spinning and the clients that you're supporting. So to make the time out to be a guest on our show is really great. Thank you for the time today. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
And thank you to the audience. You've been a part of Orange County's longest running business talk show and podcast. So Ian's show now joins our catalog of over 1,500 interviews that we've done over the years. If you happen to be an Orange County entrepreneur or a nonprofit leader and you would like to share your story with our audience the way Ian has told his, then reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Rick Franzi, Franzi, and just let me know in the connection request that you have an interest in the show. If we're already connected on LinkedIn, just send me a message or an email and let me know the same thing. And between Haley, our producer, and myself, we'll be more than happy to work with you to get you ready to be a guest on the future episode of our program. Until the next time we're together, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company or organization in a positive direction.